Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Patrick with Stacking Layers. Today's video is going to be how to install an operating system on the Compute Module 4 that has been installed in the new Bigtreetech RaspberryPad5. If you're not sure what that is, it's a touchscreen system. You probably wouldn't be here right now if you didn't know what it was. But anyways, it's the touchscreen system that Bigtreetech has made with all the Raspberry Pi peripherals output that is controlled by Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4, this little green guy here. So two things to point out. One is what type of Compute Module 4 that you have will determine on how you're going to install the operating system. So if you have the Lite version, which doesn't have any onboard storage, then you'll just do it like a normal Raspberry Pi, put it on the SD card and plug it in here. And then that'll boot up into that system there. But with this one is the onboard storage, is the eMMC system. So it's got basically like a memory card built into it. There's a little extra step which we're going to go over to install that. Now with both systems, you're still going to have to do some stuff with SSH, which is communicating and going in and being able to program or change things on the Raspberry Pi, and that is to turn on the USB plugs and to switch from using HDMI output to using the screen as the video output, because those are both turned off to start with as default. So I'm going to go through all that. So if you're going to use a Lite system, just go ahead and load up the Raspberry Pi or whatever your OS system that you want onto an SD card, put that in, and then skip forward to the turning on these, which I'll try to put a tag if I can figure out how to do that in the description so you can just jump forward. Okay, so that's where we're going. For the eMMC configuration, which is this one, there are some things you have to do before we get started, and that is to put these little dip switches down here. Let's see if it'll stay focused. Yep. So we have these number 1 and number 2 dip switches that we need to switch over to on position. That's going to basically allow us to use the USB power to actually communicate to the CM4 as though it is a USB plug or a SD card. So let's get those before we get started. Now keep in mind, never mess with these dip switches while it's powered up. Basically, don't mess with anything back here while it's powered up. You don't want to do that. It's bad news, so do that before you power everything up. So now we have number 1 and number 2 in the on position. Number 3 and number 4 are in the off position, which are near the numbers there. Also, this little switch here, keep it to that direction, away from the USB or towards the Compute Module 4. That's basically having it in USB communication mode, so you're talking to this little guy instead of using a CAN interface. So just make sure that switch is that direction. And those first two, 1 and 2, are also that direction. And the last 3 and 4 are the opposite, this way. Okay, now let's get into the computer and get this going. Okay, so here we are on the computer, and there are 3 different programs that you have to download and install to get things going. First is going to be the Raspberry Pi Imager. This is what you're going to use for either the Lite version or this eMMC version. This is the program going to be used to basically flash the operating system to your card or your Compute Module 4. So get that downloaded and installed. The next thing you're going to need is the Raspberry Pi USB boot. Now this is for the eMMC version, so this is going to basically tell the computer, it's a little script that's used to tell the computer that it's talking to a USB, or kind of make it seem like it's talking to a USB so it knows how to use that. So that's going to be required. I'll put the links in the description so it's easy to get to, but these links are also on the Bigtreetech instruction manual. So either way, you don't have to follow mine. You can follow their links if you want. It's somewhere down here. Yeah, so you have the operating system stuff and all that, and then you have the setup here. So this is a Raspberry Pi, the rpiboot setup. Okay, so you can just follow that link too, but I'll put the links in the description anyways. So yeah, get that installed. And then another program we're going to need is called PuTTY. Now PuTTY is a SSH client, so it's going to allow us to talk to or control the Raspberry Pi from the computer. Because, like I said, we're going to have to turn on the USB ports, and we're going to have to switch over from HDMI to use the onboard screen. And again, that is described further down here in the instruction manual, right here in the settings, system settings. So you got the USB code and you have the display. It's also for camera. You're gonna probably want to do that too to use a camera, and if you want to use the real-time clock on board, so how to set that up too. Okay, but we're not going to go over these two parts here. We're going to do the main parts just to get things running. So once you have all those installed, then we can go in and start doing the OS installation. So first thing you need to do is open up your RaspberryPi boot, rpiboot. Get it to this screen, and this is waiting for you to plug in the Raspberry Pi or the compute module system here. Plug it in. If you see it saying this loading embedded boot code over and over again, try a different port. But see what it did right there. Everything's fine. That's what it's supposed to do. It's gone and it's loaded it and turned it into a USB drive. So as you can see, it's trying to autoplay it. You may get this format disk. Don't worry about that. Don't do it. Just get out of here. Same thing with that. It's just Windows trying to read the system as a hard drive, and it's got stuff on it. You may not have all this stuff on here. I've already have an OS that I was playing around with to try it, so you may not have that. But anyways, just cancel out, get rid of all that stuff. We don't need it. It's going to get formatted anyways. So the next thing you do here is go to your Raspberry Pi imager. Alright, and if everything went well with the rpiboot, you will see the storage in here. Now keep in mind that whatever you click and get going, it will erase everything. So if you're using an SD card or some other storage that it has stuff on it, back it up because it's going to erase it all. Also, if you have multiple selections here, options, that probably means you have other devices plugged in, other storage devices. So it's probably best to just unplug those, get those out of there, so you don't accidentally click the wrong one. Especially if you somehow, it shouldn't show you, but if you somehow see the C drive or Windows or like a D drive, which is like a secondary hard drive in your system on here, don't click those. Be certain that you're clicking the one that you want to flash because it's going to erase it all. So anyways, get that on there. Go to your operating system. This is why I like the Raspberry Pi imager, because it has all the Raspberry Pi themed stuff already ready to go. You don't have to install or download an image file somewhere else and get it going. You can if you want. You have the bottom here to use a custom image. What we're going to be doing, since we're doing 3D printing, is this square guy here, which is other specific purpose OS. And as you can see, 3D printing operating systems. First option I have here is 3D printing. And here's the various options that you have to install. We're going to be installing OctoPi today. If you're doing Clipper, you got the OctoClipperPi, and you have main cell OS, which is for Clipper also, which I'll probably be doing something later on with. But we're doing OctoPi, so let's go there. I recommend do the stable version because it's stable. You can do nightlies. That's going to be the newest, absolute newest. As you can see, it's today's date, so as of today on the computer. But they're updated nightly. That's why I called that. And the problem is that it could be buggy. You never know. There could be issues, so I recommend just stick with the stable. And then before you hit right, you want to come down to this little gear icon, go into settings, and this is where you're going to set up communication to SSH. So make sure that box is on. I also like to change my host name just to keep it a little bit more personal. So I don't, I have actually another Raspberry Pi running, so I don't want to have them overlapping and stuff. So this helps me distinguish them. So I'm just going to name this one RaspberryPad5, since that's what it's going to be on. Whatever is in here, remember it, because it's going to be that name plus the .local when you go into the SSH system. So we're going to need that information. So write it down or remember it. And there's the SSH, like I said, enabled. Use password authentication. With the password, the username should stay the same. Don't change that. I saw something on on the OctoPi that said don't change that, because I don't know, I'm thinking maybe something's hard coded in there. So just leave that part alone, but do change your password. The default is Raspberry, so anybody can get into that because it's a common, it is the default on all Raspberry Pis. So go ahead and change it. And unfortunately, you don't have a confirmation password line, so make sure you type it in properly. turn on your wireless if you want to do that. You should, because we need to get into it. If your computer is already on the wireless system that you're going to be using, it'll auto-populate, so that makes it easy. Otherwise, just pop it in there. Set up your wireless country, because it could cause security discrepancies or problems. So you want to get your country and everything aligned with what's going on. Same thing with your local settings, just so your time and everything is set up properly. I'm in. Why is this not working good? It's being super slow on my. Okay. I'm in Oslo. Is it working? A little slow on that. That's weird. Okay. Yeah, now you know where I'm at. We're in Oslo. We're in Norway here. There we go. And the last part of it is, if you want, when it's done uploading to play a sound, I leave it off for me. I don't need it, but it's good if you want, because it will take a very long time to install. So you can just get it going and then go off and do something to wait for that sound to let you know. Eject the media when it's done. That's good. Leave this enable telemetry on. Honestly, I don't know what it does, but just leave it on, since it's there as default. Hit save. And then write. Now, like I said, this is going to take a long time, and you may get here. Of course, you're going to get the message saying, "Are you sure that's the right one?" Because it's going to get erased. So yes. You may get another pop-up here. Let's see if it happens. Sometimes you get a pop-up because it tries to start reading the disk again. Yeah, and just cancel out of that. And then we wait. I'm going to fast forward through this so you don't have to sit here with me waiting, and I'll be back shortly. Okay, so here we are back at this type of a screen. Of course, just cancel out all this. Do not format. Do not click that cancel. Once you see this, it is saying that it's been written, and now you can remove the SD card. Go ahead and unplug that. Alright, we can close this out. We don't need this anymore. Everything's been installed. Now, of course, before we go any further, we're going to have to flip those little dip switches back into their position of off. So let's do that before we forget. Do not forget this step, because it can drive you crazy trying to figure out why is it not connecting. Those two little dip switches down there, got to go back to the off position, because we don't want it to try to communicate anymore. We want it to act like a normal computer. So let's get those. See if I can do this on camera. Yeah, not so easy, is it? There we go. So let's get a close-up, just so you can see what's going on here. Looks like number one is not fully engaged. Okay, so that's what it needs to look like. Make sure you get those back into the off position, and that switch there is on USB mode. Now you can power it back on, and we're going to get into the SSH part of this. Okay, so back here at the computer, what we're going to need to do is follow these here. These are the system settings to activate the USB hub and the display. Switch it over from the HDMI, which you see is here. Default display connection is HDMI. So you can, I don't know if I can highlight that. Yeah, so right there, yeah. So you want to use the integrated display. So this is the code that you need for that. So we're going to do that first, because it's the easiest one to do. So you copy that whole line, make sure that it's all the way from the sudo down to the .bin, and then you copy that out. It's best just to copy instead of trying to type it in, because if you miss one letter or one space or something like that, it's not going to work. So do that, and then we're going to come into our SSH client, and then you're going to type in the host name. Remember, that was the first time we set up, so mine was RaspberryPad. Nope, not dad. Pad 5.local. Again, leave Gotta leave the port 22 and SSH on, so all that's good. You can also, if you want to, you can save it, so you can make a name here, and then click save, and as you can see, I did that there. This just helps so you don't have to keep typing this in. Click open. I'm getting this warning because this is I'm using the same port basically for a previous install. It's like thinking that I have done some fishy stuff. You shouldn't get that warning if it's your first install, but if you're coming back in after a fresh install, it'll give you something like that. So anyways, so you come in, put in your login as Pi, your password that you set up, and we're in. Now that we got that, like I said, you copy this code. I think I already did that, but I'll just show you again. Click, copy, come to there, and you right click and put it there. Before I hit enter, I'm just going to point out, this is your to access your OctoPrint from the browser. This is the IP address that you'll use for that. So just keep in mind, take a note of that. We're gonna use that a little bit later to go in, and so you can see it is obviously here. It says OctoPrint and it's running the OctoPi. So this is letting you know that it is installed properly and working. So anyways, let's get that. This is the screen. You put that in there, press enter. You're gonna need to put your password into it. And let it go. And as you can see, it installed fairly quickly. There's your 100% done, everything's successful, and you're set. Now the next thing is a little bit more complicated because what we have to do is actually edit this config file. So if you're not familiar with how to do that, I'll show you. It's simple, but you're gonna have to do a little extra. You can't just copy like we did with the previous code here. So first what we're gonna do is get into the nano, which is like a editing thing. And so this is the code you use for that. It's the sudo nano and then the boot config. So this is basically going into edit. I'll put all the codes, or sorry, the links in the descriptions, and I'll put this in there too, just so you can easily get to it. So I'll just copy that, click it in. It's saying to use super user permission to use nano to edit this file. Is basically what's going on. Enter. So now you're in on it. You can't use scroll or anything. You can scroll, but this is just scrolling the command prompt window or whatever, this SSH window. So you have to use the arrow keys and just scroll all the way down to the bottom of this file, because if you see up here, you're actually editing that boot config.txt file. So you come down here to the bottom, so you're on the very last line, and then you're going to go back to the user instruction manual, copy that code right there, and put that at the very bottom. It's the very last line. You're just adding to the basically like the startup configuration. And so this is telling it to essentially turn on the screen. Don't use the HDMI, use the screen instead. And so to save that, you have this here. You just exit, which is control. It's that little up arrow means control, and X. It's going to ask you, or yeah, basically, are you going to want to change it or not? Or sorry, save the changes or not. So we're going to yes, we want to save. And it's telling you it's going to write it to this configuration. This is the name. Don't change that name at all. Just hit enter again, and you're done. So that's it. Now we've done that, and we can reboot and see if we did it right. The screen will come on and show us the operating system going. So to do that, you would hit sudo reboot. And before I hit enter, I will come over to the screen so we can see that in action. Okay, so here we are at the screen, and I'm going to hit the reboot or hit enter so it reboots. It's saying, oh, I guess I have to spell it correctly. S-U-D-O, reboot. Spelling is vital with these things, of course. There we go, it should reboot. And in a second here, we should be able to see the screen booting up. There we go. So now we have screen communication instead of the HDMI, and there is the operating system booting up. Now, of course, we haven't installed any interface here, so we're going to get to this part here where it says RaspberryPad5 login. You could log in if you have the keyboard and stuff plugged in, which you can. You can do remote keyboard and mouse, and everything will work just like a normal computer. But we're not doing that here. We are going to be using the OctoPrint on the computer to finish up the setup. Okay. Okay, so here we are back at the computer. What we're gonna have to do, of course, is use that IP address. It shows you down on the screen there. It is 192.168. I've already started, so I have it in there. There we go. So now we're in OctoPrint. Everything's here working. So it's been successfully flashed and it is up and running. Of course, we have to set it up, or I guess go through the setup wizard. If you're an OctoPrint user, you already know what's going on here, so you can just fast forward through this and get the setup. I'm assuming new excuse me, I'm assuming new users, so we're gonna go. We just skip over this one because this is for using old things, backups, and reinstalling. So first, you're gonna need to do a username. I'm just gonna use my previous one I've put in here. Let me do my password. I think that's the right one. And then you create account after you've put all that information in, and it should pop up. Yep, you get a little toast notice here saying that it's been logged in, and there it is, logged in. So pretty straightforward there. Then we come into your configuration for your connectivity. You're going to want to pretty much leave all this the same, unless your IP, your service provider requires you to have a different port and stuff like that. So it uses the Google DNS server, which is pretty fast and everything should be fine. I do recommend to click the test hosts to make sure things are reachable and working well. So that's good. That's good. Also enable connectivity check, so it does its checks to make sure that you're able to connect. So that's enabled. And go to next. Then it's up to you if you want to do this. This is anonymous usage tracking just to kind of help with the developer. I say yes, that's fine. I support the developer, so go ahead. You don't have to. It's not required. You can disable if you don't want it. That's your choice. Here, I recommend, I say it's probably vital to enable the plugin backup because blacklist on it because if you get a malicious code or something for a plugin, if it's on the blacklist, it'll save your system from being hacked or whatever. So it's worth it. It's a safety feature. I recommend it. Now we're going to get into your printer setup. So this is your profile. So it's basically all your printer information. You're going to give it a name. Mine is called, the one I'm going to be using this on is called a not. You'll see why in a minute here. I got a ridiculous system I'm setting up. And it's going to be an ET08. And again, like I said, you'll see what's going on here when I show you my printer once it's plugged in. So do your print bed. Rectilinear, it's got heating bed, origin left corner, yeah, that's all good. And I bet it's 220 by 220. And I think it's 240, something like that. That's good enough. If you need a custom bounding box and all that stuff, you can do more. Oops, let's see, previous stuff. So I want to make sure, yeah. So you got your access speeds and whatnot, hot end, all that's the same. Okay. So make sure, if you have any special requirements for this, put it all in because you want OctoPrint to be working with with your printer, because you can do code and stuff from OctoPrint direct, and you want it to match your system. So anyways, yeah. So do that. Go for next and finish. You're all done. Safety features, yada yada. Don't print when you're not around. We know we don't do that, but yeah, we do that. So here we are. We're in the system. Everything's up and running. Of course, I'm not connected because I'm not plugged in. And we can do that shortly, but there is one more thing we're going to do to make this touch screen useful, since you saw when I showed you the boot up that it doesn't really give you anything but just kind of showing that it's on. So what we're going to do is install Octodash. Octodash is pretty cool because you see in the background we have a really nice touch user interface, and they've made it very easy to install. So you just come on down to this script here, to the installation, and copy that. We're going to get back into the SSH through PuTTY and install that. So we got what was that, Raspberry RaspberryPad5.local. Enter, and we should get in. Here we are. We do our username and password. There we go. Back into Raspberry. Sorry, not Raspberry, but into the OctoPrint interface or connection on the RaspberryPad5. So just right click, that puts that script in there. Hit enter. You're probably going to have to enter a password. And of course, this is the password for the Raspberry Pi setup, not for your OctoPrint setup. And then this might take a while to download everything and get everything set up for install. Certain parts of it, like right now what it's doing, it doesn't show any progress bar. It looks like it's not doing anything, but it is. You can verify on the back to see if it's, if it's doing its thing by a little green light flashing. So again, it looks like it's stalled out, but it is doing something because you can see here it's showing that it's got 5 upgrades going on and 147 newly installed things. So it takes a little while. Just give it time. Okay, so once it's done doing that thing, you'll get to this part, which is going to ask you what kind of plugins you want it to install. Pretty nice setup what they've done here. This installation process is great. There is one that's absolutely necessary, is the display layer progress. That's required for this system. Everything else is optional. So you make sure that one here, the second one, is selected. To do that, as you can see, it says press space to select, enter to finalize. So you use the up and down arrows to move the little square over, and then space bar, and it shows you now it changes to a little green box to say it's selected. So I'm going to go and select some of the things that I want to install. You don't have to do any of this except for the layer progress. But I want a preheat button. I don't have an enclosure. I want the Time Genius because that thing I know works really well to show you accurate timing for how long your print's going to take. Ultimaker, that's Kira format stuff. Prusa Slicer, yeah, that's for thumbnails. I want to use that since I use both those. TP-Link Smart Plug, if you have one of those, it's great. So you can turn off and on your printer from the screen. I'm not too sure what the task mode is. I haven't looked into that stuff. But it's some sort of communication QTT, so you could probably get it to send messages to other things. Maybe you can do something like blink lights when your print's done. And then you got your Philips Hue control stuff. I don't have any of that, so I'm going to leave that alone. Let's press enter and get this installed. Again, it can take a little while to download and do its thing. I'll fast forward. Okay, so looks like it did its thing. It wants to know, should it enable this course CORS thing. Honestly, I haven't looked up what that means, but it is required. I know it shows over on OctoPrint too, so I'm just of course saying yes since it's a requirement. So it's enabling that setup. Okay, so now we come to this part. It wants to know if you want it to automatically start on boot. I'm going to say yes, obviously, because we're using the touchscreen. But you can install this actually on normal computers too, and just use it, or on a normal screen, and have to boot it up or tell it to start. So, anyways, we're hitting yes, and then wants to know if it should do an update script to make sure things are updated, and it needs root access for that to do it in the background. So I want it to. So yes. You can choose no if you don't want to and do your manual updates. And now at the very end, it's asking if it wants us to reboot because everything is done. So I'm going to hit yes, but let's get to the screen before I click on that so you can see it boot and do its thing. Okay, here we are back at the screen. I'm going to hit enter to say yes. There it goes, it's rebooted. Let's see if everything worked, and we should get the Octodash to boot up. There we go. Yep, looks like it's booting. Now we're into the welcome page. There we go. Octodash initializing. And we're in. So you're into the screen, you have successfully installed and booted up Octodash. Now we're not 100% done, but we're almost there. So just hang in there. The next thing we have to do is set up API communication, which if you hit next here, let's see. Yeah, first you got to select your instance. Sometimes there's multiples, so just select the one that is on top or whatever one you want. Really, it should be the same. But yeah, we only got one right now, so don't worry about that. But just be aware, it's possible you have two. So click the one that is the one that you named on your local IP. So here we are. We are on the we need authentication for the API key. So this is allowing, basically giving permission to Octodash to talk to OctoPrint, and so it doesn't have to continuously log in and stuff like that. So basically, you're going to tell OctoPrint that yes, Octodash has access, and you can use it to control OctoPrint. Yeah. So yeah, this is required basically if you want it to work. So we're going to get it back over to the computer and show you how to do that. It's pretty easy, and I will show you. Let's go to the computer. Okay, so it's pretty easy to do with that API. All you have to do, let's first reload this since it was already opened. You come back into your OctoPrint, so make sure you're logged in. If you get this undervoltage detected, that is telling you that you're not using a proper power source, and I know I'm not. I'm using right now my computer to power this, which is terrible, but it should be okay for right now, hopefully. But you should use a dedicated Raspberry Pi power source for that. I think that would be recommended by the Raspberry Pi, what is it, the Raspberry Pi 4 plug. I think it's like 3 amps or something like that. Don't use a phone charger. Those aren't made for steady charging or steady powering. They're not power supplies. They are battery chargers. So just keep that in mind. But for this situation, I have nothing else plugged in, so I should be safe. Anyways, so that little green button to do the API, all you have to do is click on that send request button on your screen, and you should get this message popping up here, and that's saying, do you want to allow them to? You say yes, and the login sent, it automatically populates the key on the screen, and we will come back to the screen and show you that. Okay, so here we are. We got the API set up, and everything seems to be there. We got touchscreen as the name of the printer and all that good stuff. So let's just go through next. And then we have our extruder information. It's good to put in your information if you have different settings you want to do. My system I'm plugging in right now is experimental, so I'm not going to mess with that. Come next as your plugin stuff. So if you want to disable plugins that you already had enabled or start new ones, there you go. And then come to here. There we go. It checks everything. Make sure everything's all connected. Everything's talking properly. And you're good. All green checks are good. Done. And it's initializing into the system. Now, let's see. I'm not plugged in, so it's not going to connect, of course. There's a printer error. I'll just swipe up here to the screen so you'll see it is connecting. So if I try to hit connect, it tries and then goes away, and I get that error again because there's no printer connected. Of course not. So now that we got all this working, let's plug it into a computer so you can see what it does. Now that we got it plugged in, the motherboard's plugged into a regular USB, and then the USB that we have been using throughout this whole video is now just the power. So we're going to power that up and see what goes on. Now I'm using an actual power supply, so it should work fine. It would be nice if there was like an audio operating system boot up sound or something. Oh, maybe it's an option in the future. Add a speaker and do all that. So there we go. It's successfully booting. Lots of things it has to load up, so it does take a little while to do this. There you are. It automatically defaults into sleeping mode. All you have to do is just tap the screen, and we should have connection. There we are. Just letting you know that it obviously is connected because it's showing you temperature and everything. So otherwise it would say printer not connected. So yeah, we now have full control over our computer. I said that again, didn't I? Our printer. As you can see, temperatures right now, since I don't have my bed hooked up, I just have a thermostat here to give me that temperature. I know this is bad. So I will hold that so you can see it working, just to give it some heat. There you go. Now it's raising up to somewhat body temperature. Yeah, so that's working. And let's see, we got all sorts of stuff here. We got control, so let's do that. And as you can see, I'll come over to the printer and I'll move the X by 10. Oops, that's the Y. There we go. Here, I will zoom out and move this up so you can see the action. Hopefully I don't do any shorting out. Okay. So it's a fairly responsive setup. And do Z. Yeah, we're all moving around doing our thing. So full control. You got I'll get this off this metal case just in case I forgot to put the cover back on the back there. All right. So files, there is a way to set it up so you can use the onboard SD card, but I haven't gone through that. I have to look into that because I can't remember how to do that at the moment. But right now, putting the SD card into the motherboard will allow you to read the files. So you see, you come in here and it reads them up. That's just the stock files that came in with the printer. So I mean, it's everything. You got the filament thing. I'm not too sure what this is. I have to explore it. That's why I installed it. But I think you're able to like add different filament. Honestly, I really don't know, but I think you can add filament types that you have. So like from PETG or PLA and stuff. So you just click that and it'll automatically switch over to that profile. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. I need to read more about that one. But you got fan control, so you'll probably be able to hear it. Yeah, or see it. It's a quiet fan on here. I'm actually surprised. It pumps out pretty decently. But anyways, yeah, fan control. All is pretty much straightforward. Tap it to go to 0, turn it off. You have other things, other settings and stuff that you can do, general settings, and you know, how things connect and where it's your default temperatures are and all that different stuff for preheating and all that. You slide down. You got all that there, home and preheat. You can power it off and cool down. So yeah, pretty nice setup. So we're gonna just power this down now, since I'm gonna be shutting down. But that's the video. That's everything working. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was informational and not too long. I know it's crazy long, but it is a tutorial, so that's just kind of the way it works. But yeah, let me know what you think. If you like these type of videos, if it's something you want to see more of in the future when I get some more things to do. I do plan on doing a video of this crazy madness here. Get that set up. I'll show off that, I guess, if you're interested. But yeah, let me know down in the comments what you think. If you have any questions, please do leave that down in the comments so I can try to help as best as I can. You know, give me a thumbs up if you like the video, thumbs down if you hate it, of course. I don't mind if you don't. Subscribe if you think this stuff is great. I will work on making better quality videos, getting better camera setups and better lighting, yada yada. But until then, I have to keep it this way. Yeah, that's the video, guys. So again, hopefully you liked it, and thank you for watching. Until next time, happy printing.